Hello and welcome to Border Bites, brought to you by Border Studies in South Asia. We are a collective of researchers and students enthusiastic about studying borders and border regions in South Asia. We are based primarily at the South Asian University, New Delhi, an university established jointly by the member nations of the SARC. Through this initiative, we intend to reach out to various practitioners, researchers, scholars, activists, and other stakeholders concerning borders in South Asia. Kindly subscribe to our channel for more of our updates. I am your host Udipta, and for today's episode, we have with us Mr. Sanjiv Krishan Sood, former Additional Director General of the Border Security Force, India. While Mr. Sood joins us in a few moments from now, let me give a very brief introduction to you about him. He joined the BSF in 1977 as an assistant commandant and went on to retire as the ADG Logistics posted at the BSF headquarters. He has served across almost all the strategic sectors of India's border with Pakistan and Bangladesh. While serving as the IG North Bengal, he was involved in the preparatory work for the implementation of the land boundary agreement that involved exchanging of enclaves and adverse possessions between India and Bangladesh. He has also served in anti insurgency roles in Assam and Manipur, thus, in a way, being exposed to national security challenges from both inside and the outside. He is coming up with a book titled BSF The Eyes and Ears of India very soon. By the end of this lecture, we will try to know a bit about that book also. Sanjeev ji, welcome to our show, and it's a great honor and a great privilege to be speaking to you today. Sanjeev
Thank
ji,
you, Mr. Barua. Good evening.
Hanji. Sanjeev ji, you have served the BSF for almost 4 decades.
Yes,
And after your retirement, you have been actively engaging in various intellectual endeavors also. You were also a part of the Second South Asian Border Studies Conference in Mumbai.
yes.
It seems that you are a man of both theory and praxis when it comes to border management in South Asia. So, in that case, what scope do you see of a systematic study of borders in South Asia? I mean, do you feel there is a need to actually engage with academic study of borders in universities and colleges here?
I think it is very essential for the academicians to know about the borders because unless they understand the dynamics of borders, they will not be able to frame policies for those areas. And therefore, I suggest that a hybrid model should be adopted by the universities to study about borders. By hybrid model, I mean that it should involve academicians, that is the students who are trying to attain knowledge, the practitioners like the Border Security Force or ITBP or SSB, which are guarding borders, and also the policy makers, which will include people from Border Management Division of the Ministry of Home Affairs and other ministries, the state agencies, the customs, the immigration officers. So all these practitioners and policy makers, along with the students, will be able to uh, prepare a comprehensive material about the borders for dissemination to the general public and for better comprehension of the problems which are there on the borders, with what are the needs of the borders, and in what manner can we integrate the border population into the mainstream. See, the problem presently is that India's borders are not economically developed, and therefore they indulge in the border residents, many of them indulge in trans-border crime. So unless we improve border infrastructure and enhance the opportunities for employment in those areas, we cannot wean away the border population from crime. So in my perspective, this is the main issue. Integrating border population with the mainstream, which should be the scope of the border management studies in various universities. and colleges. And as I've suggested, it should be studied in a systematic manner by including all stakeholders, the academicians, the practitioners, and the policy makers.
So, Sanjeev ji, you have already rightly mentioned that there are several challenges in the border regions, in border management. So, from the various roles in border management on the ground that you have played, what do you think are some of the complexities and challenges of border management in India or South Asia in general on the ground, which we students and researchers sitting away from the borders might not be acquainted with? I mean, something if you would like to share from your personal experiences.
Okay. So, uh, what is my perception is that in general, the public seems to think that border management is one agency function. For them, border security force is the one which is responsible for entire border management system along our borders. But then this is not a fact. BSF is there for providing a sense of security to the border population by showing its deployment, by deploying themselves and by patrolling the area, showing its presence in the area. So it is required to present, show its presence and ensure a sense of security among the border population. But then there are many stakeholders involved in the border. For example, the civil administration, they have to firstly give land to the border outpost for BSF. They have to give land for construction of fence. The administration has to give funds for border area development program. The customs are there who have to sort of levy duties on authorized checkposts from where the goods can come and go. The immigration officers who are there for carrying out immigration duties. So all these stakeholders are involved. The intelligence agencies are involved to give us intelligence about the border crime. So all these agencies have to operate on the border. So the first challenge is of ensuring coordination amongst all these agencies. And one thing which I didn't mention so far is that the most important stakeholder is the border population. As I've said, we all are there only to ensure a sense of security to the border population. So they are the most important stakeholders. So the area has to be developed for giving them employment opportunities and ensuring sense of security. So that is one. Now the other thing which the academicians may not understand is that the entire border of 4,000 kilometers with Bangladesh and almost 2,900 kilometers with Pakistan and also other borders have varying kind of terrain. Border management and border security operations in all these areas will vary. The type of coordination required will vary. The type of coordination required with the border guarding and border management agencies of the neighboring countries will vary. So these issues are to be understood by the students of border management. Another thing that after the 80s on the west side and after the 90s on the eastern side, we have constructed a fence. They have created their own set of problems for the border population. How does the fence affect the life of a border resident? And also how does it affect the border security operations by the security forces is a matter which is to be understood. The population pattern along the border. For example, on the west, we don't have any population beyond the fence. But on the eastern side, we have population all along the border, beyond the fence, right up to the zero line. In certain areas, even the border pillar is in the courtyard of a house. So all these peculiarities are not visible to the students of, or the students in various universities and colleges interested in border security studies, which they have to visit the ground, feel them, and then incorporate them in their uh, studies. So these are the kinds of challenges that I spoke about the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, so long as I had not seen Tripura,
Mm-hmm.
I always presumed that it would be like any other border. But then Tripura has its own peculiarity. 8 months in a year it rains. There's thick foliage. The visibility is negligible, and then on top of it is malaria
Mm-hmm.
and mosquitoes. So now in had we sitting in Delhi, we cannot realize this problem, how badly the mosquitoes and malaria affect. The Jawans have been known to fall to malaria frequently in very short periods. This
Mm-hmm.
reduces the strength of security personnel for border domination operations. We have to improvise uh, our dresses to ensure that mosquitoes do not bite us. So these are certain uh, challenges, macro and micro both, which the students of border studies have only after they make field visits. So, as I
Mm-hmm.
said initially in answer to your last question,
Mm-hmm.
the scope of the border management studies should also include visits to different borders
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, in order to comprehend the challenges out there.
Okay, so Sanjeev ji, you have already flagged off, the overwhelming relevance of the border population in terms of border management. In a way, you have expressed the relevance of the human element in border management. So, if we see that in the present time, we are in the midst of a very grave crisis, brought to us by this COVID-19 virus. If I was to ask you that what might be some of the challenges that the border management or say the border security forces on the ground might be facing on the face of this crisis that has come to visit us.
Okay, so the effect of COVID on our border security operations is negligible.
Mm-hmm.
We are dominating the borders as we were doing in the past.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have noticed that on the Bangladesh side, they have become more proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Their border domination pattern has improved uh, or increased, not improved, increased. Their border domination frequency has increased. Perhaps they want to ensure that none of our Indian residents cross over to their side because nobody knows that who is COVID infected. So
Mm-hmm.
perhaps that is the reason they have enhanced patrolling and domination of the area. So that is the impact on border security.
Okay.
In other aspects of border management, in the field of border area development and in the field of civic action program,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we are now finding it a little difficult because the funds would be less.
Mm-hmm.
That will be a future effect also. The funds would be less available, and therefore these programs will have to be curtailed, shortened, or done in a limited budget. And in fact, they will have to be prioritized according to the need of the border population. The other thing that may be affecting our border population management systems is that if our troops get infected, it
Mm-hmm.
might affect border security.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Touchwood, it hasn't happened so far. We have very limited exposure. However, on the BOPs, we have to take care because we have to take care to ensure social distancing norms.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, more people may fall prey to the COVID infection.
You have already mentioned a bit about it in the first question, but if I was to explicitly ask you that if we have a border studies academic curriculum, See, if we study borders in our university curriculums, what do you think should be some of the essential elements of such a course content? What are some of the elements which you feel should be invariably included in such a curriculum?
Okay, so I guess there's a procedure with the universities that a board of studies
Mm-hmm.
decides the
Of course.
syllabus.
Yes,
So
of course.
I would suggest that the board of studies
Mm-hmm.
should consider these issues properly and give out a detailed syllabus.
Mm-hmm.
I am suggesting certain points
Mm-hmm.
which are essentially required to be included. And similarly, a discussion may be carried out whether include, how to include them, what should be the scope of it. And these points are not necessarily in a sequence that I'm giving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
just an idea of,
just an idea.
such such elements should be included, for a border studies curriculum, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my view, the first issue that topic that should be discussed is the evolution of borders
Mm-hmm.
and evolution of border management
Mm-hmm.
from a historical perspective
Mm-hmm.
of borders and border management, and then international agreements related to forming of various borders should essentially form part of this. Then effect of different types of border management with the on the relations with the neighboring countries. So, for example, the LC scenario has a different impact with on relations with Pakistan, whereas the relations with Bangladesh will be impacted differently from our border management system adopted in those areas. Then the other thing required is coastal security.
Mm-hmm.
Border problems in different parts of the borders. And since we are discussing about Southeast Asia, so in Southeast Asia,
South Asia. Yeah.
in particular reference, in particular reference to the problems related with Bangladesh, Pakistan, or rather say India's borders with neighboring countries, because they will also have bearing on our relations with those countries.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had in one of the previous questions said the fencing has affected the life of border population.
Mm-hmm.
So effect of border barriers, fencing is one barrier. There may be different kinds of barriers. Effect of barriers on the life of border communities. You see, when we initially constructed the fence in Punjab, it was said that the land prices in border areas had gone down.
Mm-hmm.
So these kind of economic fallouts may be there of these barriers, and how do they affect the border population? Then, if we come to India again, the border area development program that we are adopting, how effective it is in uh, alleviating the problems of border population, how
Mm-hmm.
effective it has been. It has been in existence now for almost 25, 30 years. How effective, what has been the impact on the lives of border population? Again, in reference to borders of India, as I had initially said, terrain differs, population composition differs. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are the effects or what are the challenges faced by the border security forces in and other stakeholders in
Mm-hmm.
managing those borders according to the terrain and the composition of population in those areas. So these are uh, certain topics that I can suggest. And one very important issue is the role of different stakeholders
Mm-hmm.
in ensuring effective border management is another topic that must be discussed. But then, as I said earlier, these topics have to be discussed and analyzed in details
Mm-hmm.
before a proper syllabus can be suggested.
So, Sanjeev ji, we have almost reached the end of today's episode. I mean, before signing off, would you just like to mention very briefly about this new book of yours that is coming up? What can the students or researchers of border studies look up to, from this upcoming book of yours?
You see, this book on BSF, this particularly relates to BSF
Okay.
and discusses initially discusses the evolution of borders of India from historical times till
Mm-hmm.
the modern times,
Okay.
then goes on to discuss the evolution of border management in
Mm-hmm.
India.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, we had unprotected borders since 1947. Thereafter, various border security forces evolved according to the need.
Yes.
Uh, Thereafter, as we all know, that BSF and other border guarding agencies have a role to play in internal security and
Mm-hmm.
also during the war.
Mm.
So the book also discusses briefly the role that BSF played in 1971 war, in the Kargil episode,
Okay.
and thereafter in the internal security, election duties, anti-insurgency, anti-militancy in Punjab and Kashmir. And then it goes on to discuss the organizational details in a limited manner. We have not discussed many details of
Mm-hmm.
organization, but
Mm-hmm.
we have given a brief of. And thereafter, we discuss the challenges faced by BSF on the eastern and western borders.
Mm-hmm.
And book ends with the recommendation for the authorities in the border security force and uh, the ministry concerned. So these are about 7 chapters that we have included. In
Okay.
so far as researchers are
Mm-hmm.
concerned, this will give a general perspective.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so general perspective of the evolution of borders and
Mm.
BSF, but then of course add-ons will have to be there because it
Yes.
is
Yes.
written in a simple language for
Mm-hmm.
understanding and comprehension of general public and the
Yes.
border.
Yes. Yes.
BSF, in order to highlight what BSF is in the eyes of general public, the aim of the book is that to make them understand what BSF.
Okay, okay, okay. It seems very interesting and informative. I mean, all of us are looking forward to this book, and all our very best wishes for this upcoming book. At the end of it, thank you once again, Sanjeev ji, for being with us today. It actually was a great, great honor to be speaking to you.
Thank you so much. I'm honored by you having invited me.